It was the kind of evening that seemed written in a novel, where the rain was soft, the streetlights golden, and the world felt like it was holding its breath. Isla stepped into the bookstore to escape the sudden drizzle, not knowing that with that one small choice, her life was about to shift forever. The bell above the door jingled lightly as she walked in. The place smelled of ink, leather bindings, and the faintest touch of coffee. It was old, beautifully so. The wooden shelves leaned slightly under the weight of stories they'd held for decades. She wasn't looking for anything in particular, just a place to dry off, to warm her hands. But as she wandered deeper into the quiet shop, she heard a voice behind her. "You're looking for something that hasn't been written yet." She turned sharply. The man standing there had a slow smile and a voice that felt like a page turning. He looked a little older than her, maybe early 30s, with a tangle of dark curls and eyes that had clearly read more than most. "I'm just browsing," Isla said, brushing a damp curl behind her ear. He shrugged. "That's when the best stories find you." There was something unusual about him. He wasn't trying to charm her. He simply existed in a kind of quiet stillness, like the shop itself. And Isla, a painter from Florence on a short trip to reconnect with herself, was intrigued. He introduced himself as Rowan, the owner of the shop, and the kind of man who remembered favorite lines from poetry instead of birthdays. By the time the rain stopped, they were still talking. About art, about stories, about why some people feel too deeply to ever truly belong anywhere. When Isla finally said goodbye, Rowan did something unexpected. He handed her a small envelope. "For later," he said, "when you're alone." She opened it back in her hotel room. Inside was a single piece of paper Dai read. "You look like a poem I had once forgotten. Thank you for reminding me." Isla hadn't planned to return the next day, but she did. Something about Rowan's bookstore had stayed with her. Not just the note, not just his words, but the way she had felt inside those walls.
Known.
Noticed. When she walked in again, he didn't look surprised. "I thought you might," he said simply, handing her a warm cup of tea without asking. They spent hours in the back of the shop, talking about forgotten authors and unsent letters, sharing stories as though they had known each other far longer than the 2 days they actually had. She told him about her paintings, how she'd stopped creating months ago because everything had started to feel hollow. "Maybe you weren't painting nothing," he said. "Maybe you were painting absence. That has its own color, you know." Isla looked at him like he was pulling thoughts from her bones. Later, Rowan showed her the quiet room above the shop, an attic with tall windows and books stacked to the ceiling. It overlooked the old street, and he told her he sometimes slept up there when he stayed too late working. There was a small desk, a candle, and shelves of letters he'd written but never sent. "To people I loved, people I lost, people I never met. Why never send them?" Isla asked, gently tracing her fingers along the edge of a letter marked simply, "To the one I haven't met yet." He smiled sadly, because maybe they were only meant to be written, not answered. That night, she painted again, in her hotel room. In a burst of restless inspiration, Isla filled a canvas with soft shadows and warm light. The silhouette of a man in a bookstore window. A quiet heart waiting to be heard. She didn't know what it meant yet, but her hands did, and when she returned to the shop the next day, she brought the painting with her. Rowan stared at it for a long time. "You painted me," he said finally, voice barely above a whisper. "No," Isla replied, stepping closer. "I painted the part of you that you hide." The silence that followed was thick, charged. He stepped toward her, just a breath away now. She could feel the space between them narrowing, warm, electric. "You make me want to write again," he said. "You make me want to feel again," she answered. And then, there were no more words. Only a kiss. It was slow at first, uncertain, searching, but soon deepened, anchoring them in a truth neither had dared to name. It wasn't fire. It was something quieter, but more dangerous. The kind of feeling that builds in silence until it changes everything. The attic room above the bookstore had become their world. Each night, after Rowan closed up shop, Isla would climb the creaky wooden stairs with a sketchbook in her hands, and he would be waiting, always with tea, always with a candle burning low. Sometimes they kissed without words, Sometimes they sat across from each other and read from old, yellowed books like lovers from another century. Sometimes they said nothing at all, just listened to the rain tapping the window panes like a familiar melody. But every night, Rowan wrote her a letter. He didn't give them to her right away. He placed each one in a box beneath the windowsill, tied neatly with a red ribbon. She knew about them, but didn't ask to read them. "Not yet. I'm not writing for now," he told her once, tracing the lines of her palm with his fingers. "I'm writing for the night you're gone. In case I never get to say everything." The words made her breath catch, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she whispered, "Then promise me something." He nodded. "When you finish the last one, burn them." His eyes searched hers. "Even if they're all about you? Especially if they are." She didn't want to become a ghost in someone else's pages, but days turned into weeks, and weeks into something harder to define. Their connection grew not through grand declarations, but through shared silences, through the way they found comfort in simply being in the same space. She painted again, endlessly, fiercely, using his letters as fuel, even the ones she hadn't read. Her new canvas was a storm of blues and reds, of longing and hope. It was messy, raw, and utterly alive. Then one evening, Rowan handed her an envelope, different from the others. "This one's for now," he said. Inside, there were only 4 words. "Don't leave this time." She looked at him. Her voice trembled. "Rowan, I know," he said, before she could say more. "You have your life, your world. I just needed you to know you changed mine." That night, they didn't kiss. They just lay together, forehead to forehead, hands intertwined like lifelines. In the morning, she was gone, but the box of letters wasn't beneath the window anymore, because Isla had taken them, all of them, and in their place, she left behind one of her own, a painting of the 2 of them, curled in that attic room, bathed in candlelight. And on the back, in her delicate handwriting, "I'm not gone. I'm just painting our next chapter." Love letters. Sometimes love is not loud. Sometimes it writes itself quietly, between midnight letters and unspoken promises. And if you're lucky, it stays.